So today I'll be talking about the preference system. So preference system is mainly like a way of adding like user preferences. So like for players to control their settings of what is available. So like anything like so whether a recipe uses eggs or milk for American breakfast, for example, right? Or how many blueprints can I spawn using custom difficulty? These kinds of things. So to get started, right, you first have to subscribe to preference system in the workshop. Once you have done that, you can actually do you will create a static variable in your code, right? So you can have store a preference system manager instance like so, right? So you will import preference system and create a preference system manager instance that you can reference throughout your entire project. So you make it internal static. Is that better? I can't tell what's better. Okay, I'll just do it like this. And so to start, right, you can actually do it anywhere in your code. I usually do it in post activate, or in KitchenLib, you'll do it on post activate. The reason is because it's the earliest point in which you can start your code basically for any mod, right? Otherwise, if you do it in pre-inject, it will only be available in the HQ. So I'll show you later on what's the difference. But for now, we're doing post activate first. So first of all, we initialize this. So you do pref manager equals to a new preference system manager, right? You create an instance of it. And first of all, you pass it a unique identifier. So most of the time you use mod GUID. And the name in which you want it to show up in the preference system menu. So you can do mod name, right? So to add a option, right, you would start off with add option, like so. So preference system uses a lot of method chaining. So each of these will return a preference system manager instance, which is the same instance. So you can just chain it together to create your menu. So you would think of it as drawing from the start of the menu at the top to the end. So if you want to create a, let's say, a boolean to turn on and off a certain feature, you would do a add option boolean and pass it a unique identifier for this preference. So for me, I would say enable mod, for instance. Then you pass it the default value of the preference. In this case, I want it to be disabled at the start, so I'll put false. And for values, you pass it all the possible values. So for booleans, there are only two. So new boolean array and pass in a false and true. So for instance, in this case, because I pass in false and true, the options will be from left to right in the selector as well. So my disable will be on left, and if I move right, it will enable the mod. If I want to flip it, I can do true, false, for instance. So we'll start off with enable on the left. Then you put the corresponding string values. So like so. If I have true on the left, it'll be enable, disable. You can name it however you want, right? You can even name it on and off, for instance. It's up to you. So to register it in the menu, so it will appear, you do preference manager dot register menu, and then you give it a menu type. So there are two menu types. One is main menu and one is pause menu. So remember how I said that pre-inject and post-inject, these only happen when you enter the HQ. So the main menu is actually not available to you if you do it in any of these methods over here. If you want to have a preference in the main menu, you need to do it under post-activate. So far, any questions? Okay, otherwise I'll move on and we'll expand on this. So let's say you want to add a label to this, right? Because right now, when you add this preference, right, it will only show the option. It won't actually show anything else other than the option itself. So it'll just be a selector followed by the back button. So if you want to add a label of it, you can just do add label, for instance. And you can add label enable mod, for example. And this label just display as is. So once you're done, you can just build this mod. And then I'll open it in game and I'll show you what it looks like. One second. Right? So because I registered in the main menu, I can show you go to options, preference system, and my mod is here. So I name it example project. That's my mod name. That's why it appeared as example project. So right now you see there's a label for enable mod and then a disable over here. So it starts on the left is enable and on the right is disable. Right? So it's just a simple way of doing it, and it automatically stores the value. So when you log in again into the game, it actually remembers all the preferences. So you don't worry too much about caching the value by yourself. So to get into more complex menus, right, you may want to add, let's say, a sub menu. So you can actually do add sub menu over here. Give it a unique identifier for the sub menu, which I would say is like sub menu, let's say sub menu 1, and then the name of the sub menu. So I would say more options, for example. You will end off a sub menu with sub menu done, and that basically defines that this is a sub menu, and then we exit the sub menu over here. If you want to have more options below the sub menu, you would do like let's say add label, right? For this is the end of the menu, for example. So these any options you put within these two within the sub menu over here will appear within the sub menu. And then once you exit the sub menu, it'll go back to the root of the main menu, right? So you can do add option for an integer, let's say this time, right? For example, you can do things like this. So if you want to add spacing, right, between your menu, you can actually do something like add spacer. So there's a lot of different methods that I've already implemented. If you have something else in here that you see that's not being implemented and you want to know how to do it, you can let me know and I can add in the feature, right? So there's also one more thing which I think is a bit more complex that you normally wouldn't use, but it is available. So there is the add conditional blocker function over here. What this does is within any block, so let's say I want to do this, so I was conditional blocker done over here. It's very similar to menus, right? Anything within this conditional block, if this function here that you enter returns true for should block, everything in here will not be added into the menu. So let's say I have some options that are host only, right? I can do a host check. So I would return a value like a network mode, right? So network mode, game network mode dot host, right? So I would need to get the network mode and then I'll check against this network game network mode host. So I would do, is it 1 second, give me a moment, let me find it. Game network mode. So it's here. So it will be session dot current game network mode equals this. sorry, not equals to host. So if I'm not the host, everything in here will be blocked. So these are host only options, for example. What else is there? So there is also a new thing I just added recently, which is a add selector, I believe. Add page selector, right? This will allow you to have multiple pages on the same submenu. So if I want to have let's say a list of items that may be too much, right? So if you have too many options within a submenu, it will actually exceed the screen height, and players won't be able to see what they're selecting. So you can actually use this add page selector, and the way you would use this is similar to the other one. You do page selector done, I believe. No, you wouldn't. So add page selectors is just an option that as a selector itself. So there's a condition for this add page selector in which it must be the first selectable element. So I cannot have options above it. I cannot have selectors above it. Right? I cannot have anything that can be selected by the player. I cannot have buttons as well. Right? I cannot have any buttons above this add page selector if it would throw an error. There's a reason for this, in which that PlateUp does some not so optimal redrawing of the menu. So when you change a page, it might push the page selector, it might push the current selected element to be off the page selector, right? So we do not want that. So typically you have the page selector as a first element, and you will give it the number of items per page. So let's say I have 5 items per page. I would just do it like this. The thing is, you may not want to have the add label and add option as 2 separate elements. So the way this works is you would do add page, add item. Once again, dot item. Dot start page item, right? And then you would wrap everything that is a single item within a single block, like so. So this would count, although it's 2 elements, as 1 page item. So you could do multiple of these, right? And they will all appear on different pages. So I can do 1, 2, 3. Right? So these are 6 items that will appear as different elements on different pages. So it will actually exceed the number of items per page here, which is 5. So it will actually roll over the second page, and I'll show you how that looks like later. Um, right? So if I build this and I run the game, yes, it should be available. It should just be it shouldn't really matter, because later on, I will just have to do it within the pause menu, right? So actually, it really doesn't matter because you have the host anyways in the main menu, and I believe host is the first. Give a moment, let me check. I believe host is the first one. Yep, host is network 0 anyways. Your network mode 0. So remember, it's default. It will always default to 0, and you will get that. Once again, it crashed on me. Let me check what's wrong with this. Oh, I accidentally added one too many elements. Give me a moment. So I'm done. I didn't add the start for this. So you must start it before you end it every time. Right. There we go. So yeah, even the default value is 0, it should return true. So we shall see, right? I mean, to be honest, I never tried it before. And I rarely do main menu preferences. So actually, it's a quick time to do it. So if I want to register the menu, I can do it both in the main and pause menu. So it will appear in both. It is a possibility, right? You can actually do this, or you can just do pause menu alone. It's up to you. So let's see. Moments. So if I now go to options, preference system, projects, there. So it does work for the host because everyone's the host in the main menu anyways. So these options will all disappear if you're not a host. And if I go to page 2 now, it'll redraw with only that. And I don't know why it showed the panel, but I'll probably have to fix that sometime. But yeah, so this is how it actually works, right? 2 separate pages, 7 elements, so it rolls over the second page. And only those elements that are within, that are page items are actually affected. Things that are not paged, like the sub menu, are not affected, right? So there are a few things I did not cover, but those things are actually like duplicates of the previous. So like you can add float options, for example, right? Or you can add a string option. It's up to you. So all these things are actually available on the wiki, which is actually on my GitHub. So you can go to. So let me copy the link here. Can go to this link here. So this link contains all the preferences. I actually updated a wiki recently, so it should be updated. In the wiki, you will find two separate menus. One is assessing menu creation, and the other is assessing preference value, and the other is menu creation. Let's swap these scenes to my. I'll just do this instead. I'll just do this. So this is what it looks like. You can go to assessing preference values here. I will show you different ways to it. So I actually didn't cover it. I should actually cover this. Give a moment. So this is how you access the values, and you can set it as well. But I wouldn't recommend doing this, to be honest. Then in menu creation, it shows you all the different elements that you can use. So options, there's also a profile system. But I would avoid using a profile system. It actually needs to be updated because I need to use the a global profile system, right? So I'll avoid doing this for now. Yeah, I think I actually covered most of the elements. So if you go to a full menu creation example, right, it just shows you usage of all these elements together, like what I showed you today. Okay. So going back to the project, right, I can show you getting the values. So for this example, there is a enable mod value here. Right, I can access this preference value in some system, let's say. So I will create a new system for you. So this will be an example system. And I'll make it a generic system base for now. So this system currently will just run anytime the game is open. It doesn't actually have anything limiting it. Like let's say a singleton that I use to control this. One thing you can do in here is to do is to get the preference system manager itself. So let me change the namespace to match it. So you get a preference system manager instance, and then you'll do get, right? And I'll get a Boolean value because my preference is a Boolean. And then I will pass the unique identifier. So in this case, enable mod. So if anything in here is, if the mod is enabled, anything in this block will run. Otherwise, it wouldn't run, right? So I could set a singleton, for example. So I would do a set a singleton that determines whether my mod is enabled. So the rest of the system is going to keep checking the preference value. So I'll do as mod is enabled. right? So this is a marker component, and I will set this. I can also check if it already exists. So if the singleton doesn't already exist, it will then set the value and create a new singleton, right? Actually, this doesn't have to be done because setting a singleton will only create one anyways. So I want to remove this singleton, otherwise, if my mod is not enabled. So I'll clear the singleton. So this system will simply be toggling my mod on and off, right? So in other systems, I can use this. And then I can do it in initialize. I can instead require this singleton to run. Right? So if this singleton is not present, the system will not run, for example. So this is how we create a system that is controlled by the mod. So are there any questions? Okay, if there are no further questions, we can actually end early today because we are only supposed to cover ingredient lib and preference system today. Yesterday we were supposed to cover kitchen lib, but I think we'll be covering that tomorrow, right? Yep. Okay, so there'll be a change of plans and we'll be covering kitchen lib tomorrow. Then Q&A will be further down the road and we'll plan a time for it. So thank you all for today. We'll wrap up here and we'll see you all tomorrow.